And I think this is important to emphasize, particularly in tandem with this book, because what's implied, and unfortunately, just like the Holy Guardian Angel operation, there's a tendency to start to think of something like crossing the abyss as like a one-time thing that you do and then it's done and then you've done it. Whereas actually Crowley tried to find all kinds of different ways to cross the abyss and have that experience through different mediums and different means to sort of fully realize that experience. And that is sort of what brought him from, Master of the Temple, where he's got his garden that he has to take care of or whatever, as we've seen in Liber 14, to the state of Sissimus, where he is wholly free from all attachments whatsoever. Because there's a reason that there's like more grades beyond the abyss than just the Master of the Temple.
What about people who fail to cross the abyss? Can they retry? You know what I mean? Like, it always seems so finite. Like if you try to cross and fail, then you go that path and wither away. Like, wouldn't they be able to be like, I didn't cross, and then maybe have some sort of life-changing experience and then try again?
I think that's possible. I wouldn't rule that out, certainly. I mean, if someone tried and felt like they had failed, then I would definitely encourage them to try again. I think the idea behind the Black Brothers is more they tried and probably think they succeeded. And that's where, if you can admit that you failed at doing something like that, then you're probably a lot safer than someone in that position of the Black Brotherhood. Because that's someone who's sort of not trying to advance any further.
Right.
In a sense.
Okay.
It's the same like the Guardian Angel operation. I mean, the danger for that isn't necessarily failing to contact one's Holy Guardian Angel. The danger is, Crowley tells us, that we'll contact our evil genius instead and start taking advice from that. And that's an entity that's going to be trying to fuck us over. And certainly going to tell us what we want to hear. And make it as easy as possible to do that. With the Abyss, we don't have that kind of... what do I want to say? We don't have that kind of potential in the same way, I think. But there are, if you'll notice, there are probably more people in the occult community, I find, or at least that I've interacted with, who claim to have crossed the abyss than claim to have knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. And those people are, always insane.
Does that make sense?
It doesn't really make sense. But it doesn't make sense that they're talking about how they crossed the abyss, usually anyway, especially.
Yeah, sure.
Especially if they don't really know anything about ceremony and magic and they can't really fully articulate. They think that being completely articulate and babbling is some kind of reflection of having mystical attainment or whatever. If you can't understand them, it's because you're not enlightened enough. When actually they just don't make sense.
Yeah.
That happens a lot, unfortunately. I think it's that people get their hands on this idea of the abyss and the idea of trying to get across it, and just that it has this weight to them that they want to be able to attach to that, or it's some kind of empowered feeling or something like that, or they want to use it as a new state to describe their drug psychosis or whatever it is that led them to this state of confusion.
Is it a term that's used in other things, like yoga or something, so they might just think it's some new age thing, like, oh yeah, I crossed it?
No, it's as far as I can tell, it comes from Crowley.
Okay.
Sorry?
No, I was just
wondering, like,
Just
someone
like-
could meditate for 50 minutes and then be like,
Yeah, it's a different
You know what I mean?
context of the word using it, is what I said.
No,
It seems
but
like
you
people have a tendency to try and latch on to any excuse they can to sort of
Just sound cool.
become a guru and become,
Yeah.
all-knowing and all-powerful and all that kind of thing. So
well,
it's like,
just because you said that you bump into so many people who've said it, and I thought maybe they were referring to something else.
Yeah, no. To my knowledge, it's Crowley's own term. He kind of compares it to a certain extent to samadhi in the sort of Hindu conception of things. But even then, I don't think that he would consider that comparison to be a strict one-to-one by any means. And he does talk about it to a certain extent in his lectures on yoga. So I think to get the sense of where Crowley would differentiate the experience, that's where you'd look. I think that the reason that Crowley wants his own terms, it's for the same reason that he's coming up with these terms in the Book of Laws with the it and that and I, and identifying them in this respect, is that he wants the language to be specific to the AA system, so that it's not just because if you do take terms from another system, then you necessarily bring on the implications of using those terms, which don't necessarily jive with the same thing. So just to have its own technical language, I think it's important to make that association. Even the Holy Guardian Angel itself, Crowley does get that from the AA and from the Abramelin stuff, but in a way, like, the reason that he adopts it, where he doesn't adopt so many other aspects of that system, because there's a lot of things that he chucks in the whole AA symbolism, but he's like, hey, I like this Holy Guardian Angel thing, because, you know, no one would ever take it and run with it, really. It just sounds so elaborate and off the wall that, like, it kind of, he saw that as a defense in and of itself.
Well, the abyss can have those connotations, though, because when people say the abyss, like, especially in the Christian context, it's automatically like a prison for Satan and whatever, like, you know, so...
Yeah.
Where it's sort of the same thing, I guess, if you can see Karanzan as a satanic figure of sorts.
Yeah, I think that...
It's a completely different connotation, completely different use of the word, right?
It is, I think it is, but it isn't, like, because if, like, the concept of evil in Thelema and the
That's
four...
what I mean, it's not synonymous, but it's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, when we see the four great devils as perversions of, you know, the world's religions and stuff like that, then it is very much, like, you can't, again, that's nothingness in the negative sense that Crowley's kind of like trying to get us to reject with the whole initial concept of the Kabbalistic framework of the universe, because, I mean, those are literally negations of something that is out there already. So to get to sort of a positive state of nothingness, that sort of has to be transcended. I think that's why the 10th Aether was the significant confrontation for Crowley, where he had to, like, get past this idea of separateness, which you do by confronting the idea of separateness, which is in itself a sense of separateness, but he's separating himself from separateness. And here we are. It's also, I think, important to remember that the AA had just kind of come out. It was still pretty young at this time. So this was Crowley's first big masterpiece of that. Yeah.
To that extent, do you feel that the Book of Lies in any way sort of seems sort of formative, or sort of like it's at the infancy stage in sort of a negative sense at all? Like, do you feel like there's any weaknesses due to that stage of the work?
Because I don't, because I mean, I think a lot of Crowley's writings after Book 4 are kind of more engaged with explaining things that happened before that, I guess. And
So just reiterating and re-referencing.
yeah, I think the Book of Lies was one of his, like, until we get to the Book of Thoth, after Book 4, one of the last big kind of pushes that he had. And then there was a lot of, because, you know, then he became more involved, because it was the catalyst for him getting involved with the OTO. And the more he got involved with the OTO, the more he started coordinating things in that respect, and, you know, writing letters to people and communicating on a larger sort of, his network grew, basically. And that became very significant to that. So I think that it was, he doesn't really try to ratify a system. I mean, like I make the comparison to Liber Aleph, but I don't think that was published while he was alive, was it?
No, Liber
Yeah.
Aleph, I think the funds that were intended to publish it were actually found under his deathbed.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Huh. Well, yeah, like, I mean, yeah, that's an example. I mean, he quotes Liber Aleph in other books of his, but that's not, it wasn't really sort of his, yeah, his thing that was out there. It's definitely an interesting use of his poetic talents. There's not another time that you really see Crowley apply himself to poetry in this way. I mean, he combines poetry with ceremonial magic and certain invocations and stuff like that, and certain rituals that he wrote, certainly, but this is not even like Crowley-style poetry. I mean, if you read the rest of his poetry, it's not written like this very
Yeah,
much
sure,
at all.
like you say, it's very Koan style, and he doesn't normally, you know, very different from his normal sort of mode of writing.
And every now and then he does kind of go back into that, like there's a few that kind of use a more formal, structured, sort of classical poetic style. And
So basically he was thought, like, rather than just give people like simple instructions, I'll kind of hide the answers in a way that as they figure it out, it will kind of unlock something in their psyche, or...
I don't think that the problem is that Crowley's trying to give instructions on something for which instructions are useless. There's one point at which, in one of his comments, I think he says that it's useless trying to teach anyone who has to be taught. So his idea is, you know, like you could give someone the answers, but they wouldn't really be the